people, or Mart TV. As we all know, non-lead is coming. It's not legal yet, or should I say mandatory yet, but it is definitely coming. So, what if you've got an unusual calibre or a different calibre? Me, I'm a sucker for old military calibres. This is my Blaser R8, and on it is an 8x57 JS, which is called 8mm Mauser barrel. I picked it up for very good money, couldn't resist it. Now 857 is right up there with 30-06, 6.5 Swedish, 757, that sort of thing. As cartridges that are around at the turn of the century and have just never gone away. Admittedly, the 857 isn't that popular in the UK compared to the 6.5 Swede. But with the advancing tide of non-lead, if you've got an 857, good example, and you're just shooting soft tip bullets through it like this is what I tend to use. It's a 150 grain Sierra Game King, perfectly adequate, great round, nice and simple. Sellier Bellot, of all people, who have been around in the ammunition game for a long time in Europe, they have moved into the 21st century with blue eXergy. Essentially, this is a monolithic ballistic tip, non-lead, which is a solid copper projectile. Nothing really exciting about it. It's like a Barnes. You've got a lump of copper with a hole in the end. The sides of the bullet at the front, the ogive, are, should we say, weakened, and there's a ballistic tip at the front, so that when you hit, the ballistic tip pushes back, initiates massive expansion, and the four petals open up and they move through the beast, doing all the damage, and hopefully the bullet will exit the other side, leaving a nice blood trail to put the animal down quickly. That's it. There's a lot of talk about non-lead, do you use light bullets, do you use heavy bullets, and I have to say that this load is 180 grains, which I think is a little bit on the heavy side, but we shall see. S&B packaging it quite nicely. Comes in 5 round green sliders. Basically the rounds just pop out like so, and that's the bullet. We'll see in greater detail, but it's monolithic copper bullet with a blue tip to it, which makes it quite eye-catching in a standard 857 case. Looking at the packet, S&B quote a speed of 804 meters per second, which translates in English to 2637 feet per second, which is a factory quote, and using that figure, that gives a energy figure of 2,802, which is pretty impressive for what is a sub 700 feet, 2,007 feet per second bullet. But then again, the 180 grain bullet does help that. Maximum recommended distance by S&B to use it is 160 meters, which turns out to 174 yards pretty much, which isn't that far. In terms of keeping energy above 1,700 foot-pound, then the load is still at 1,700, 190 yards, and then it drops off dramatically as typical of a heavy bullet, not going that fast, it drops right down. However, I probably only use this at 200, 250 yards. I mean, it's a good thumper, and I'm pretty much certain it'll put anything down, certainly a big beast. Unsurprisingly, the blue is quite a long bullet, because being non-lead, therefore made of copper, it hasn't got the weight. So the only way to make up the weight is to make a longer projectile. I'll illustrate this by showing you the magazine of my R8. See, I use a number of loads through my R8, 8 and 857 barrel. This is a 175 grain Sierra Game King, and as you can see, it's 5 grains lighter, but it's probably about 1/8 of an inch shorter for almost the same weight of bullet. However, there's no problem with the extra COL of the S&B. It feeds and chambers as smoothly as ever. Okay, back from the chrono and the test target. Things are, as I assumed, but a little bit different velocity-wise, energy-wise. So, over the chronograph, the round was averaging 2491 feet per second with an SD of 6.4. SD was very, very good. Group-wise, at 100 meters, it's shooting probably about an inch. There you go, which is very acceptable. This gun has a 1.5 to 6 by 42 scope on it, because I have it for woodland mainly. So a better scope would probably give me a little bit more target to aim at more precisely. Right, as you can see, the load is probably 140 feet per second slower than what S&B quote at 2637 with an energy of 2,802 foot-pounds. With the average of 2491, the energy is 2,500 foot-pounds, which actually is not too bad, but as you can see, there's quite a chunk of difference in that, which makes you think, how far can you push it? Because obviously a copper bullet expands because of velocity, whereas a soft cored bullet expands because the whole core deforms, and that's what causes expansion. So you might think about maybe sort of putting your range down a little bit lower. As for the 700 foot-pound, should we say, line where it drops below that energy figure, which is not a problem because it's only legal at the muzzle of the 1700 foot-pound, it's just something I judge guns by. So around about 150 yards, you're doing 2,079 feet per second, which results in 1722 foot-pounds. So you could push that out to 200, I'd say, but it's down to you. This is a 22-inch barrel in the R8, and I think, to be brutally honest, the barrel's a little bit short for the cartridge. Not for the calibre, but with a soft point bullet. I've never had any problems with 175 and 150 Sierra soft tips, and I think with a longer barrel, like 23 inches, you would probably start creeping back up to that figure. But overall, in terms of shootability, recoil's not too bad at all. It's quite, not mild, but it's certainly not violent, as is control. And as I said before, great SD, but it's really cool. It's nice to see a company producing a non-lead in what is an old-style military calibre. Not now, it's now a sporting calibre, obviously. So there it is. If you want it, you want it. It's worth. If you've got 857, it's worth a try. And I haven't taken this out against animals yet, but I think it will perform well, but I'm not sure if I push the range much past 250. We'll have to see. Anyway, thanks to Viking Arms for import S&B. If you like what you saw, tell your mates, support the website. If you need to speak to me about anything, it's the usual old shizzle, pmodel@shootingsports@gmail.com, and I'll see you later with more guns and fun.